Alright, so now let's have a look at the bolt. We're going to take this bolt apart. The bolt has two major components, the bolt itself and the handle section. Firing pin runs through and through. We have twin extractors on it. So in order to get this apart, I see here, right here, there's a little pin. And again, I'll look at that pin and I will determine which way I think I should drive it. But these two holes look exactly the same. So I'm going to drive the pin back out the way it came. And in this case, I'm going to use a brass punch. I always use brass punches whenever I can. I want to be very careful about punches that have tapered shoulders, that I don't drive the shoulder into the part, especially on punches, because you'll waller out, that's a scientific word, waller out that hole, and then the pins won't fit. Line it up on this part. Soft taps, I can feel it moving already, so I know I don't need to worry about it. Now, what I didn't point out was there's a little spring in here that has puts pressure on this, and I've been actually holding pressure back on that spring. So the punch, if I take the pressure off the spring in here, the punch won't come out very easily. If I pull back just a little bit on that spring, that punch comes out quite easily. And now, if I very slowly release the pressure here, I have a plunger and a plunger spring right here that was pushing in this little detent. So now I have a firing pin and bolt handle and the bolt head. The only thing left in this bolt head is the extractors. It has a twin extractor system. I can get those extractors out there a little bit tricky. It's handy to take most extractors will come out by putting a little bit of back pressure on them. It takes a bit of force. You want to be careful about doing this. It's a good way to throw parts across the your work. When I looked at this diagram before I started this project, I did notice that these extractor plungers here and here have little shoulders on them. So there's an upside down and a right side up to those things. So I want to be very careful to look at those first and see which way is that shoulder facing. It's pretty straightforward to pull those out. I can push this extractor in and then lever it out. Like so. Now there's the extractor. There'll be a plunger. There's the plunger. And there'll be a spring in there. And the springs don't often want to come out of these things when they're pretty dirty like this, so reach in with a punch and get it out. So there's how you remove the extractor, plunger, and plunger spring. This is obviously a very common thing we would do with firearms. Broken extractors are not unheard of, so being able to do that is pretty handy. So we're going to reassemble that real quick because we don't really need to do anything else with that right now. So I see that shoulder on the plunger goes outboard and faces away from the plunger. I'm going to put those in. All I'll do is now just compress it, press it back in all in one smooth motion. And it snaps back into place. Okay, so we won't mess with the other one. So we'll fundamentally finish with this other than cleaning it. Now this is one of those parts that it's very handy to have an ultrasonic cleaner to clean because it's got all sorts of nooks and crannies in there. Builds up a lot of gunk and stuff, but that's all there is to that part, to that bolt. The firing pin removal is a little bit trickier on this firearm because the style of firing pin spring we have here, the way it's retained. Get the firing pin in the fired position. Right now it's in the ready to fire position, so it's under tension. So I'm just going to pull down on the tong and roll that around. So I just pull back on it on the edge of the table, let that spin around. Now kind of relieve the pressure on the firing pin spring. So when I first picked this up, in order to get that firing pin out, I was examining it, and what I see here is there is a firing pin retaining ring and clip. And if you look at the end here, is the firing pin spring. There's that ring, and there's a little split clip on the end of it. That split clip is the trick to getting out because in order to get to it, you have to compress the firing pin spring, and then you have to have a free hand to get to that thing. So in order to make that just a little bit easier, I went and made myself a little homemade rig last night so I can show how this works. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this whole assembly in this rig, and I've drilled a hole in the end of this piece of metal that's just big enough for the ring, but not enough for the clip. So when I put this on, I can compress this, and I can compress the ring and leave the clip behind. I've drilled a hole in the wood down here, which I very conveniently put a punch in, and now the whole rig holds that back. And I can see on the end of this, there's a little clip here, and I need now to remove that clip. Again, it's a spring-loaded clip, so it's one of those tricks I might want to use the bag for if I haven't done this before. But having two hands to do this is pretty handy. Now, sometimes dental tools are a handy tool for this. In this particular case, I have a screwdriver that I've modified. It's very difficult to see, but I basically filed it off and left a little nubbin on the end here that kind of helps me get a hold of stuff like this and remove it when I need to, and try to retain it so we don't send it flying across the room. And there it is. So there's the little split ring, our little section ring. So we'll put that in with our bolt parts. And that's what held on the retaining ring, which holds on the firing pin spring. So now we'll take the tension off that, hold it with our hand, remove the pin, very slowly remove that spring. And there's the ring that was engaged the clip but wouldn't let the spring off. We just pull the spring straight off. Take the bolt out of our little homemade rig here. And now the firing pin will come straight out the back of the bolt. All right, so when we come back, we'll have cleaned all the parts, and we'll prepare it for reassembly, and then we'll go through the reassembly process. All right, so now let's reassemble this firearm. We've cleaned all the parts. I've lubricated them slightly with light coated machine oil. We are now going to start reverse order from where we were. We're going to take the bolt group and reassemble it. I did not mention in the reassembly that the back end of the firing pin is actually threaded into this back end piece, and there's a keeper pin in there. We're not going to take that out because it's obviously too difficult to do, and it serves no real purpose right now. The firing pin's not broken. If we want to replace the firing pin, we'd have to knock that pin out, thread the firing pin out, but put the firing pin in. This particular firing pin, since this shotgun's had a recall on it, we filed down so that this is no longer a functioning gun. So, all right, to reassemble this, we'll start with this back end group. Firing pin goes back in. Now, there's two positions on the firing pin. There's the fired position, which looks forward like that, and there's the ready to fire position, which is back here a little bit further. The fired position is going to give us less tension on the spring, make it a little bit easier to put this spring on and retain it. So we have to get our rig out and now the retaining ring, when you look at it up close, it has a shoulder built into the inside of it, and the shoulder is where the split ring fits inside. So the shoulder part goes up and the flat smooth part goes down. So we're going to place that on there, shoulder side up, safety glasses on because we're dealing with a loaded spring right by our face. Pin it in place. All right, that's holding for us now. All right, so we get our split ring out. Now to get this one on, I found it a little bit easier just to hammer it on with a punch. So I'll set it on top of the firing pin. And I got to get it on. If I had really strong hands, they are strong enough. I just slipped it on over the top of the ring. So now it's fitting. There's a little groove cut in the firing pin. The split ring's in there, so now we're ready to release the tension on the firing pin spring, and everything goes back into place. So there's one little thing though. When you look in there, you'll see that the first time you do this, the split ring doesn't really want to cooperate and get in that shoulder inside the ring. So you may have to help it with the punch, your thumbnail or whatever. You get it lined up so it's nice and smooth. All right, so got the bottom half put back together again. The firing pin is in the fired position. We need it in the ready to fire position to put it back in the firearm because of where this pin lines up. So I'm going to just get it on the edge of a piece of wood here. I'm going to pull down and give it a little twist as I go. And now I'll put the firing pin in the ready to fire position. That's the only way it will go back in the gun. If you remember to do that, otherwise when you go to put it back in, the pin will be in the way. All right, so we're finished with this. We set it aside. We're going to get our remaining parts, which is a plunger spring, and the retaining pin for the bolt. The plunger has a flat spot on it and a round spot on it. The flat actually goes in its spring, the round end actually goes out. So on top of the bolt, right here, we have a hole where the spring goes in. The plunger goes in on top of it. Flat side in first, round side out. So when we put the bolt back on, you'll see on the end of the bolt there's a little detent, little groove. That's going to line up with that plunger and hold everything in line, keep them spinning. And then to get the pin back in, we're going to just put a little bit of hand pressure. I can just do it with my hand. Hold that, get that pin in alignment. Get our brass hammer, brass plastic. Now, because this is the outside of the bolt and this has to go through the receiver, we want to make sure that's smooth to the touch. If I can't get that down flush, then I need to take a punch and give it just a little bit of help to get it off that surface so that I can't feel it. Don't drive it all the way through and create the problem on the other side. So now the bolt's been reassembled, we're going to go back together again, put a light coat oil on that, and we can put it back in the gun. Alright, so, and no parts left over. That's a good thing. Alright, so we'll go back to the upper receiver.